Welcome. We bid you welcome. John Clauser, Johnny Metal, the Metal Dad, coming to you from my music corner of the world with my faithful co-captain of who knows, we might start calling this the five count. I just don't know how we're going to work it out, but the five count here. John, the music nut, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, my brother. How about you?
I'll tell you what, today, yeah, another lovely day in the neighborhood. It's the day we're recording this is Sunday, July 16th. And so I've had some interest. I'm thinking back as I think about the five count and how we get this from King Kong Bundy, and I remember I have a ticket stub from 1986 when I went to see a WWF live show. It was a house show. Bundy was not there, so that has really nothing to do with the whole five count. But I remember seeing a wrestling show that day. So anyway, 1986. That's a long time ago, kids. Some of you guys probably weren't even born yet. But today on our little program, today, John the Music Nut and myself, today we get to play a little bit of Siskel and Ebert's for
That's
all
right.
you for all you folks who even again, some of you probably don't even know who Siskel and Ebert's are. So Siskel and Ebert's, for those who don't know, for us people who are old, I originally remembered seeing them on PBS.
Me
They had
too.
this little show called Sneak Previews, and they would review. They were these film critics from Chicago, and they would review all these little movies and stuff like that. And I remember one show in particular where they talked about their 10 dogs of a certain year, and I remember they showed a clip of "I Spit on Your Grave." Now
Okay.
imagine a 10 or 11-year-old kid seeing these scenes from "I Spit on Your Grave." Ooh, stuck with me for a while. But anyway, and then they would go on to syndication with this series called At the Movies. And then, of
Yes.
course, Siskel eventually passed away. And then just a few years ago, well, it's probably been more than a few years ago, but then Roger Ebert's passed away as well. But anyway, so we're going to be playing Film Critic today of this little documentary here called Standing on the Firing Line, the story of Mystique. Now, let me show you this other little thingy here, just another little fun thing here that
Mine's upstairs. I got one too.
so I so for those okay, so just the story with this. So Mystique, the only reason we even know about Mystique
Yep.
is because of the Contrarians.
Correct.
Now, we both belong to the Contrarian Patreon page. So there's a plug for you guys. We're plugging the Patreon page for you guys. So go check these guys out. They have a lot of good content here. But we first learned of Mystique because of Marco Diaria. Now, now again, what does this have to do with Mystique? Well, Mystique's singer, Ray, happens to be Marco's uncle. So, and Marco was talking about this project, and you could just tell this was an absolute labor of love that he was wanting to do so badly. I don't remember how many years he's been working on this thing, but you could tell that this was something he was really wanting to do, and something he just had wanted to do to get it out. So this has now made the rounds of on the film circuit series. It has won two director awards for the Couch Film Festival and the Alternative Film Festival up in Canada. So this is getting some buzz up there. And he was able to have a big premiere. Brett Peters, who was also on the Patreon for Contrarians, he was actually at there because he lived in Buffalo at the time. So he was able to go. Um, so what is Mystique? What is so special about Mystique? Why did he need to make this little documentary about his uncle's band? Obviously, I think this was a little bit more than just being his uncle's band. But there's this, I think as we have come to learn, Mystique was just this dream, or this band of kids who had a dream. and they wanted to do music. They wanted to do this band. And back in the 80s and probably into the 70s too, how many of us who got into playing music, how many of us had that, maybe had that dream of wanting to put a band together, start writing songs and start jamming and start doing stuff? It's like, here, let me show you this. Okay, check that out.
Nice.
So this is what I was going to call my band with my friend Mike and Dave. These were the guys who introduced me to Wasp. These guys were my blood brothers, and I still call them my blood brothers today, even though we don't maybe text and talk to each other. But I was writing the lyrics, and we never got to the point of actually making the music for the songs, but we still had that dream. So anyway, but that was like the logo. So we all had these dreams. Marco wanted to tell Ray and the drummer John Davies' dream of putting a band together and sticking to their guns and doing the music. So let's just start off by saying, John, what talk about some opening thoughts you might have. You know, like the intro to the documentary with the spoken word thing, and what'd you think? What'd you think of that little intro thing?
It was kind of cool, and they still say they don't know who did it. They know who did it, right? But it really brought you in, and they start playing some songs from the Black Rider EP, which we'll talk about as well. I thought this was very well done because it seems like these bands, to me, if you watch documentaries on music groups, it seems like when the bands who didn't quite cross over or make it have the most interesting stories to tell. A lot of it is because their fans are so passionate and they have these great stories from back when that band was together or when that band was in their prime. Marco does a fantastic job here in this
Mm-hmm.
documentary. He goes over the whole career. He has interviews with all of the Mystique guys who are still with us, and as well as their friends, their people who were recording these albums, people working in the record stores, family members of the band, family members of Ted, was their lead guitar player early on, and actually, if it wasn't for him, there would be no Mystique. That's what Ray and John say in this documentary. He was that important. He was their lead guitar player and a main songwriter in the band.
Mm-hmm.
So this goes into a struggling band who's got a ton of talent and the trials and tribulations that they were going through. There's potential here. It was basically a band that they started out in Hamilton, Ontario, and they stayed in Hamilton, Ontario, which wasn't the greatest place to be if you're going to live if you were playing this kind of music. That's something they go over into as well. Let's talk about, like, for example, another Canadian heavy metal band who were on the cusp was Helix. Helix were so close and they never quite broke over. They never quite broke over the threshold. They had some good albums. They had a little bit of radio play here in the States, particularly with Rock You, which was the first single off the Walking the Razor's Edge album. They they slugged it out forever. They never quite had, that was the biggest moment they'd ever have. With Mystique, had they were on the cusp, but there were issues whether they were about to be signed to a major label twice with Elektra and Geffen, respectively. They were trying to, they changed their sound. They started out really progressive. Ray has a wonderful voice. Ray had operatic lessons, and he used that to the hilt on these songs. Sometimes I think he's oversaying, but most of the time when he stayed in his range, this was good stuff. Fantastic musicians. Their keyboardist, Vic, who is now that's another thing. You see what these guys are doing now? Now he's a pastor. Okay.
Yeah.
So it, and he's very prominent in this documentary as well. They have this very early on, the Black Rider EP. It reminds you a lot of like a heavier Deep Purple, in the fact that the keyboards are up in the mix. He's playing some really interesting things. Great talent around him. John Davies was a wonderful drummer. They had a few bass players. They had a few guitar players too. Like because they came back with another EP called "I Am the King," and the guitar player on there, whose name escapes me right now, he was a talent too. But it's a lot of the things. What Marco really goes into is all the things that you're going through when you're starting out. You're so excited to have a band together. I mean, you're living cheap because your money's going into the album, and you're making these albums. And back then, as they go into studio recording time was not cheap then. So all the things they're going through, the places they're playing, how they're playing like a concert for 2,000 people, and then the next time they're playing in a bar for 2 people. Some of the things they're going through. I mean, I don't know if they really had management, and if they did, it was just on a regional level. There was no John Kalodner here or anything like that. But what this does, Marco does a fine job with this. All the things they were going through, all the people who were part of the band and part of their family, no, to put it that way, and some of the things they were going through. They show newspaper articles, they show live performances. Some of these live performances, I'm surprised they were able to get these on video, and they were pretty decent shape for the 80s. Some of the things they had to do, they changed their sound because maybe they thought maybe this would break them. Maybe the sound they were playing before, which was Martin Popoff, he's featured a lot in this series. He said it sounds like the early Dawkins. Yeah, it does sound a little bit like early Dawkins.
Mm-hmm.
Their early music, I mean, it was hard rock, but it was like, even when they did a ballad, there was a lot of passion and guts behind it. It wasn't like the hair metal stuff that came out later.
No.
But he goes into he digs deep in here.
Mm-hmm.
This is very well done. I mean, it's over 2 hours, but you're just locked in, because it's just a very interesting documentary. People leaving the band, new people coming in. We're going to change our sound here. Now we're going to really change our sound again. And then they were about to record an album in '89, which never saw the light of day. And they were going to go full throttle, would have been hair metal at that point. But by that point, things were already starting to change. There was some underground swelling of bands that would become grunge, like Soundgarden and Alice in Chains. And plus, you had Faith No More out there and Jane's Addiction out there already. Yeah. So this is very well done. He goes, no stone is unturned as far as the details of what they were going through. There was a band that was opening for them. Did you see those posters in there? A band called Lester was opening for them.
I saw that. I saw that. I was like, wow, that was different. But yeah, it's like while he you got to remember when they did this Black Rider, I'll just show the cover to this. A couple of the guys were still like young kids.
Yes.
These guys are like teenagers. They're, maybe Marco and John were maybe in their early 20s, but I mean, these other guys were pretty young yet. So, Mark Arbor, great bass player. You could tell he could tell that there was some talent there. Dave Dragos was another guitar player featured in the music. And, yes. And of course, as you had mentioned, Ted Smyrnios. Yes. I mean, I think he was also behind the whole the Torch Records, I think, was where that came into. Mm-hmm. So how it actually got released originally. But yeah, you could just, Dave just had his own sound to it. and it just there was some talent there. There was a lot of good talent there, and certainly it was a lot better of the stuff I was writing when I was a late teenager. And I think back to some of the lyrics, and and I certainly wasn't as good a guitar player as what was heard here. But again, like you said, you're in Hamilton, you're in Hamilton, Ontario. It's not exactly New York City or LA. So you're gonna get struggled. You're gonna struggle to get noticed. Yeah, you might get that cult following, but boy, it's harder to keep that kind of cult following up in an area like that's so much remote from the big network type stuff. So it was always going to be a struggle, and the other guys decided to part ways, and then when you get into some of the later stuff, and you get the different influences that were coming up, you heard the different sounds. But I want to talk about, though, when one of the things that I just, it's like when Ray and John first met, it's like they knew that they were going to have a special relationship.
Yes.
How many times have we encountered people like that in our own lives? It's like when the first time you meet whoever, I could probably tell you, as soon as I met my friend Dave or my friend Mike, I'm like, yeah, we're going to get into a lot of trouble together. I can just see this now. And we certainly, maybe not trouble, but we certainly had a lot of fun together doing things. There's just certain people that you find in life that is like, you just know that I think back to the first time I was on Contrarians, and I think, man, I'm still doing shows with some of these guys to this day. So and some of these guys I've built some good rapport with. You are certainly one of those people. But anyway, you just know that and especially in music, when you have musicians that has that kind of chemistry. Another one that comes to my mind is Bill Samus and Mark Zonder of Warlord. Mark always talked about how when he and Bill got in a room together to do music, it was just like nothing he'd ever experienced before. And that would go into even the later days of when they recorded Holy Empire and stuff like that. So you just know these stories are out there where you just know that this is going to be something special. And I'm sure there's probably millions of stories like that out there. I'm sure maybe Jimmy Page and Robert Plant the same way. Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley. There's Lennon, McCartney. I don't know about Jagger and Richards, but I don't know their story that well. But I'm sure there's a lot of those kind of stories that they're out there. And Mark, and you can definitely tell this is Ray and John's baby. The band was their baby, and they had their vision, and they tried to stick to their guns as best they could. It was just finding the people to come along for the ride. Now, so let's just talk about some of the songs on the Black Rider just a little bit, and then I'll kind of go into some of the other little bullet points I had here. So we start off with a little instrumental, or not instrumental, but a spoken word, Beyond the Four Winds, which that features the guitar player doing a rather deep voice. Apparently they didn't have to do anything with that. That was his voice. And then you go into Black Rider, which I thought was a great song. I thought that was just a fantastic song. Again, I think the lyrically here, I really thought there was some very strong stuff here. For as young as these guys were, I just thought, man, this was really, really good. You get Drago's guitar solos in here, which I thought was exceptional. Really good stuff here. But here again, No Return, I thought was another good song. Another very, very strong, powerful song. Again, you get these nice little ups and downs. You get a great guitar solo. Again, you get the searing vocals. Memories, ballad. Let me go back to No Return. This is where the organ comes in a little more prominent. You didn't quite hear it so much in Black Rider, but you definitely hear it more in No Return. And it has that kind of Uriah Heep, Deep Purple kind of feel to it a little bit, with a little bit of a chugging to it, which was pretty cool. Memories is kind of the I think Martin kind of compared it a little bit to like when Judas Priest would do a ballad, that kind of like the Beyond the Realms of Death kind of
Yes.
feel. And that's really what this felt like with, and again, you get the synth solo, and then you get the synth and the guitar interplay. I thought was a really cool song. And then Black Rider ends with Wake Up Screaming, which was the Ted Smirnos contribution here. To me, didn't the intro sound like something that you would hear in like a really bad 80s horror movie?
Yes. It did.
I don't know. That's
So
just kind of how it sounded like to me. It's just like I
yeah,
feel like I've heard something like this in a bad horror movie, but
right.
where the music was the best part of the movie. So
Mhm.
I'm not knocking the song. I'm just saying that's just kind of what it sounded like. And to me, the song really, and again, this has a lot of cool ups and downs. So with Mark again, with Ray's voice here going in with ah that whole musical interplay with all of that, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yes.
So yeah, do you have any thoughts on the Black Rider EP?
I'll tell you what, the original Back Rider EP, I think, is pretty strong. No Return, which is the song that they play at the beginning of the documentary. I think that's the strongest track on here. When I
Mm-hmm.
listen to this, I'm like, they should have stuck with this sound. But Black Rider and No Return, I think, are very, very strong.
Mm-hmm.
Memories, I would have cut down a little bit. It does remind me of Judas Priest balladry, but I think it reminds you more of the more goth stuff that did it on Sad Wings of Destiny.
Right.
I would have cut it down a little bit, although Ray sounds wonderful on it. I think it just meanders on a little bit. Cut it down a little bit. I think it works well. Wake Up Screaming, of course, is very, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the EP itself, I mean, the production is not the greatest. It is recorded on a shoestring. You could definitely hear that. But I mean, the first thing you're thinking is, wow, there's so much talent here. The songs are there. There's
Mm-hmm.
potential here. There's something here they could have built off of. Yes.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. You can tell that, I think, as you're watching, yes, as you're watching the movie, that there was, you could still hear Ray and John's kind of passion about the project.
Oh, yes.
It was just so strong that was, they wanted to, and just, I can only imagine what that had to feel like when they got these original, the original vinyl, and
Right.
they got to actually hold one in their hand. I can only imagine what that had to feel like for those guys. These young kids just recording something and getting some product out. I actually have something in my hand. You can't take this away from us. We have this out there. And to me, that's like that's like an ultimate dream, really. Of
No.
course, yeah. Do you want to? And now it's like you got your foot in the door. Maybe it's just your pinky toe, but you got your foot in the door, and now it's just trying to keep pushing and try to get to that next level. And things just kept happening, and well, you get knocked back a few steps. Vic and Dave and Mark wind up leaving, and Mark and Ray and John just kind of revamp and restart. And then so you get this period where they go to France. You get that period there where they don't really know much. There's a little bit of a language barrier between him and Eric Nicholas, is the person that they list here on the guitar that you hear on the I Am the King kind of demo stuff here. Um, but before we go into those three songs, let's just talk about the single. Um, Rock and Roll Party Tonight, and their cover of Stone Cold Crazy, which on this one features a man that it was actually featured in the documentary, a fellow by the name of Ian McWayne on bass guitar, and a guy named Dan on guitar. They didn't know it. They
Yeah.
didn't get his last name, unfortunately.
Nope.
So Dan, if you're out here watching one of these things, I hope you've been able to contact the guys. But Yeah, so let's talk. Let's just talk about these two songs real quick, and because I think there's a lot of talk about this in the documentary where this basically is going full on like hair metal style, because that's just where things were going. So, um, so what do we think? Good step or bad step?
Um, bad step. Well, first off, let's talk about how they changed their image too, which they put out the big Mystique poster where they went full glam.
Oh
And
yes.
full glam, which Martin Popoff makes he's checking out this poster, which he has in his hand, and he's saying,
Let's
okay,
see. Let's
let's
see.
see.
Maybe I'm gonna. I
There
think.
it is. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
It's on the top left-hand corner there.
Yeah.
That was the poster. And he said, yeah, this is maybe the early David Lee Roth band and Kiss at that period, and then Mystique. These are the most hair metal looks you're going to see at that time.
And they looked like a Christian metal band.
And they do look like a Christian metal band. That's true. That's definitely true. So you look at them, you're thinking, you're not thinking good metal with a progressive edge. You're thinking, let's go party. Um, and this song, Rock and Roll Party Tonight, you're listening to this, you're like, there's bands that do this well, and those should be the bands that do this. Bands with this kind of talent should leave this alone. This is not who you are.
Yeah.
I'm listening to this after I listen to the EP, which has some strong material that's progressive. There's a lot of meat on those bones. And then you
Mm-hmm.
listen to this, you're like, gonna be some party tonight. Gonna be some love
Love it.
tonight. And you're like, no, this isn't you.
Uh-uh.
It's not. It's kind of like yeah, it's kind of like when Saxon and like they went from being this great British metal in the early 80s, and then the mid 80s they tried to be Americanized, and they started writing songs that were similar to this, and it just wasn't them. They went back
Yeah.
to their original sound, and they did that the rest of their career, and they're still great. This just isn't them. Now, Stone Cold Crazy, killer version that shows you they got chops for days.
Mm-hmm.
And Ray does this scream right at the beginning, which he talks about, and here he goes, yeah, I after we recorded it, I'm like, oh, now I got to do this every time we do this live because I like to stay close to the record, which you got to respect that. And he goes,
Yeah.
oh, should I really? Oh, should I have done that? Because now I got to do this scream every time we play live now. But
I'm sure Bruce Dickinson probably says the same thing with with Number of the Beast.
exactly, that's true. Yeah, but no, this was a misstep. I mean, this was their last gasp, you could say,
Yeah.
of trying
Yeah.
to make, and it's not who they are. I mean, everything before this is quite, it's pretty strong stuff, but
Yeah.
this isn't them.
Yeah. I think they admitted that was they just didn't stick to their guns. You
Right.
know, they went with because they thought that's commercially that's where you had to be in order to get the crowd and to get the sales. You know, and I think they just did something that just wasn't them, like you had said.
Yeah.
They didn't stick to their guns, and they didn't stick to what they knew and where they felt like they should have been going. And yeah, this was I think the Stone Cold Crazy was great. I think
Yes.
with better production it probably could have been even stronger, especially I think on maybe the vocals, some of the vocal production. But I mean, they again, for what they did with what they had a budget for was amazing. You know,
Yes.
I don't want anybody to think I'm completely slagging them because I'm not. These guys had, you know, although I will admit, I think Rock and Roll Party Tonight was, yeah, maybe some hair bands did it a little bit better, but it was still a lot better than anything I could have done when I was that age. And so I give them and musically it still sounds really good. There's some good music stuff within the song. It's just the lyrics are just maybe not just aren't who they are.
Right.
So and they definitely realized that. Because when you looked at that poster and you listened to especially the Black Rider, that didn't match.
Right. It
You
not at
know,
all. Not at all.
not at all. It matched Rock and Roll Party Tonight, but it certainly didn't match, No Return or Black Rider.
Exactly.
Certainly didn't match that. So now they're off. Now they get this thing where they get to go overseas and they get to go to France and they record and they get this guy named I believe his name is Eric Nicholas and crazy guitar
Play.
player.
He could play.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness, that kid could shred. Would love to know what he's up to these days. But so uh so so now we have they bring in three songs from a what they call the I Am the King demo, an instrumental here called Prelude to Opus One, which that kid is just all over that thing,
Oh my God.
literally,
Yeah.
literally. I mean, he's just a monster on this thing.
This is like Yngwie Malmsteen level stuff he's doing. He
Yes,
can play.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, and I think John does John and whoever else was involved in this musically does really well with it. I think it stands out as a very good instrumental.
Hmm.
Um, I Am the King. I think this is a little bit of a return back to who they were, a
Hmm.
little bit, but you still got the guy shredding,
Yeah.
quite a lot, and but it's still pretty good. I think lyrically, I think this is a really strong tune. I really dug this one. Standing on the Firing Line, which is the name of the documentary. Again, you get that Judas Priest kind of feel of the ballad. There's no drums on this. It's just the
Right.
guitars and Ray. And I really liked this song. I thought it was there was something powerful about that lyric. And and musically again, I liked everything about it. It just some of it was a little just again just a crazy talent playing over that.
Mhm.
But man, so I don't know if you have some thoughts on those final three tracks.
Yeah, Ray's vocals on these. I mean, he really shows his chops here. I mean,
Mhm.
especially on saying on the firing line, he holds this note on I Am the King very long. And I noticed that when I was listening to it before, and then I watched the documentary again, and they're referring to that. I'm like, wow, man,
Like
that's
13 bars or something like
yeah,
that.
13 bars it was. You're like, oh, how many people could do that? That was
Not
very
me.
impressive. No, not me either. Not by a long shot, but uh and of course the instrumentals prelude to Opus One. That's yeah, fantastic guitar playing on there. I'm more of a fan of the early Black Rider EP, but I still like what I hear here.
Hmm.
And I certainly like it more with their attempt at hair metal. So,
Yeah.
and supposedly they were making another album that was going to go even more into that direction, and it never saw the light of day. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I said that before or not, but okay.
Yeah. You get a lot of that sprinkled in in this documentary. There's like
Yes.
a number of songs that even John couldn't even remember some of the titles of, but there's just you get these little bits and pieces of things, and the two guys that were brought in, there was another fella here named Carl Abrissom. He was on guitars.
Yes.
He was very proud of what he brought to that time period. And it's just a shame that either the complete tapes have been lost or recorded over or whatever. And some of that probably may never see the light of day. It would be pretty cool if it could, but again, because it just adds to that whole, dare I say it, mystique of the band,
Yeah.
because it really is. Um, but yeah, there's just all of this is just these two guys, mainly these two guys, and there's their passion, their dreams of just wanting to do this really good music. And it just by the end of 1989, you could just tell Ray was just, he just was done, and he just walked away from it all, and then John would go on to doing some other things. He went on to doing some other things, but just nothing came back together. Nothing really, nothing probably got to that Mystique level per se. And you hear all the stories. It's the you're living on wine and cheese, you're living on this, or you're living off that, while you're making these music. You talk about these little small rehearsal studios, that was like formerly shoe repair places, and
Right.
all these different things. And like that guy who owned that place, you could tell he was a big supporter of the band,
Okay.
being someone who was in music prior to that, and just got disenchanted with the music business. Gee, where have I heard that before?
Right.
And you could tell he wanted to see these kids succeed, and he wanted to keep pushing the Mystique mantra forward. He was you could tell he was a big supporter. And, there's a couple of other people that were big. Martin gave a glowing review. Martin Popoff, he gave a glowing review of this. This is probably long before he knew Marco. So that certainly had some credence to it, which is great. But I think the saddest part of it all was something Ray says at the end of it, when they talked about maybe what could they get back together in some form, and just do like a little one-off or something like that. And I don't really want to, I guess because of how I said that the sad thing, I kind of gave it away. But yeah, you have that time in a bottle,
Yeah.
and that lightning hit that bottle, and sometimes you just can't capture that again. And I think that's what Mystique was. You had this time in a bottle time where they just made something super, super special. And now here it is, 35 years later. People are different. People have grown, people are changed. Could you even recapture that magic again?
I'll say one thing though, their fans are really dedicated, because what really spurred off this documentary was the fact that people were paying hundreds of dollars for these original copies,
Yes.
records of Black Rider.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing about the heavy metal community and their fans. They're so dedicated. You have to respect that.
Yes.
This is a part of their lives. This is a part of their foundation. And it might have been some of the best times of their lives, but they're going to hold on to that like it's sacred, and they should.
Yeah.
And just how that music made you feel, or may still make you feel to this day. They're going out, and some people are like, oh, they're trying to buy their past. No, they're thinking of a joyous time, and they want to capture that again.
Yeah.
I would love to see if if they would do if they do a reunion show in Hamilton, Ontario. That would be nice. Do it for those fans who were dropping hundreds of dollars on used vinyl copies of Black Rider.
Yes.
That would be so cool. That would make a great sequel to this. You
Oh
know,
yeah, absolutely.
talk about what's happened since then with the guys in the band, and her interviews in this.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, all Marco's interviews in this, all the answers he was getting, these questions. It just all really clicked.
Yeah.
Made you want to root for them, like the
Yeah.
Anvil documentary does.
Yeah.
It reminds you of that.
Yep.
You're talking about Ray and John. Think about Steve and Rob from Anvil.
Oh,
An-
absolutely.
Another great Canadian band who never
Mm-hmm.
left Canada.
Yeah.
And they were on the cusp. They they're still around. They they're pushing their late 60s now, but they're still out there, still playing with a lot of passion, a lot of balls.
Yeah.
Um, Still plugging away, still have all those albums with always having 3 words in the title. And so, but yeah,
But yeah, you talk about Anvil, a band that, everybody has all this love for, but now that some of these bands got really huge, well, why ain't you taking Anvil out on tour?
right.
You
They
know,
did. They
you
did for a
know,
little bit, and that was it. After the documentary.
but boy, after that, I mean, well, no, I'm talking like bands like Metallica or Guns N' Roses or even Motorhead. I'm like, what, you know, how comes you couldn't take Anvil on that stadium tour? Why,
Right.
how comes you couldn't do, you say they influenced you. Well, come on,
Yeah.
show them off. Why do you think Metallica wanted Raven to open up the John and Marsha's memorial show?
Hmm.
Hey, who would not want to see a Kill 'Em All One for All tour again?
Yeah, no doubt about that.
Oh my goodness, that would be ridiculous. But you know, again, I don't know if that's in the guys in Mystique's cards, if that's something that they eventually would want to do. And again, it just depends on who they can get.
Right.
Like I said, not everybody was featured in here. You don't see Dave Dragos and you don't see Mark Arbor. So Eric Nicholas, you don't see him mainly because of his the language barrier there. But
Yes.
but but some of these guys kind of, they gave Marco their blessing with that, which was good. I will say this: I would be really curious to see the version that hit the festivals. Marco told me the version that hits the hit the festivals was a 90-minute cut.
Oh, okay.
So the DVD is a much longer version, but Ray and John both told him I didn't even notice it. So that's pretty cool. So that again, that goes to show how good of a job Marco did with this.
Yeah.
Marco really just his ability to both edit, direct, produce this whole thing. He really just, again, absolute labor of love. And it just was a very special thing for him. And I'm really thankful to know that this exists,
Me too.
and it makes me kind of, it brings back the memories of my dreams of this, the old Bloodstone gang, which, the only reason that we get the Bloodstone, if anybody knows, you probably know Bloodstone, where the title comes from. If you're a Judas Priest,
Bloodstone.
exactly. So if you're a Judas Priest fan, you know where that comes from. And this is actually, I have to show this. This is the original drawing that my high school girlfriend did.
Nice.
So I still have it all these days, all these years later. I have that. But you got the Mystique pin. I never got it. I didn't pick up a pin or a T-shirt, but I wish I had. But I guess I still could. But yeah, the buttons. Yeah, man. People who had the buttons. They had T-shirts, which even the guys say, "Man, I don't even have a T-shirt anymore from some of those old days." And you know, it's all of those dreams that we all had if we wanted to do that music, but just because we live in the middle of nowhere and we think nobody's going to listen to this, and you give up on your dreams. Ray and John didn't want to give up on those dreams, at least not that quickly. And yeah, they did it. They banged it out for about 6 or 7 years before they finally called it a day. But at least they're still doing stuff out there in some way, shape, or form. So
And now more people know about them than ever, thanks to this documentary and
yeah, yeah, the
thanks to
word,
people going up and buying those vinyls that are still
yeah,
around.
and how many people are talking about this documentary? I said, how many times has Marco been on a show? Somebody's talking about him, and that's it's the words just staying out there. So in that respects, we're helping keeping their dream alive. Because yeah, you don't want to ever see people's those when you have those dreams, it's hard letting those things die. You know, it just I think of it for myself, as especially with the whole Bloodstone thing. You know, I would love to have seen that be realized, you know, in some way, shape, or form. Maybe it might not have been with Dave and Mike, although it wouldn't have been the same, because I would have liked to have had those guys as my fellow compatriots. But life just kind of took us all in different directions. You know, yes, would I have liked to have heard my songs that I wrote lyrics for? Would I have loved to have heard them sung and performed? Sure. Would anybody have bought them? I don't know. Probably not. I don't think I would have gotten on Metal Massacre, but you know, who knows? You don't know until you get the right people to make those dreams. I feel like I feel like I'm about to go into Laverne and Shirley. It's like we're going to make all of our dreams come true here.
Yeah.
But that's really what it takes. You get those people together, you got the dreams, you got the passions, and boom, you get something that's super special. And that is what Black Rider and the Mystique band music is. So,
yeah.
So there you go. As far as I'm concerned, if I'll have to look up the website if anybody is interested in buying this.
It's still available.
It is still available. Let's see. I was looking for a website on the bottom. Mystique-black-rider-online-store.com. That is where it is. I don't know if you all can see that right there. Mystique Black Rider Online Store.com. So
yeah, right at the bottom.
So there you go. So that's where you get this. You see that running time, 139 minutes. Well, I don't know if that's including the hair scene.
Which it does include the hair scene.
Okay.
And includes the
premiere thing. Premiere. Okay.
And the whole documentary is probably 2 hours and 5 minutes.
Right. The hair. I have to say the hair scene was funny.
Yeah, it was.
Well, of course I had the best hair. Oh no, I had the best hair. It's like, well, I was always follically challenged.
Yeah.
So yeah. But I thought that was always that was really good. But you know, the premiere again, I wish I could have traveled to Canada for that. I would have loved to have been there for that. But yeah, standing on the firing line, the story of Mystique. Go check this out, y'all. It really is just a wonderful story of two guys and their dreams. You know, and you need those kind of feel good stories like that. It's good stuff. So John, I don't know if you've got any parting thoughts before we wrap this baby up.
Yeah. Thank you, Marco, for making this. Because absolutely. You know what? It's the stories that keep them alive. That's what I always say. And he brought Mystique new life here. So you gotta give him mad respect for that. And he did a wonderful job making this documentary.
Yep.
So I got.
So I have a water bottle. But I raised my water bottle to you, Marco. You did a good job, and I'm sure Raymond and John and any of the guys who are in the band, I'm sure they really appreciate it. So there you go. There's our turn at being Siskel and Eberts. But yeah, go check this movie out. We both give it 2 thumbs up.
Absolutely.
That was always their thing. So
yep.
So there you go. So next week we're probably going to talk a little bit of I don't know what we're going to talk about next week, but we got something in line for you. So be sure you come back. I'm sure it's going to have something to do with the 5 count. So for my co-captain, John the Music Nut, I am John Clauser, Johnny Metal, the Metal Dad, from my music corner of the world. Like, share, subscribe. Go pick up some Mystique. Go back, watch the Wasp episodes. Go back and watch the Love Coma episode, the live show things, the live albums that we did. We've got some good stuff coming, and you won't want to miss any of it. So like, share, subscribe. Thank you for all who's been tuning in, and we'll see you soon. Take care, guys.
Take care. Thanks.